Okay.
Yeah.
Um, if Jasima, if you could uh, just put the email on. Let's have. How about Bob? Or Bob, read this just on that second paragraph, starting with
So
we are. What can it say down there? Where does it start? Down there a little ways.
this month we had 5 Sundays.
And we are finishing up with.
Okay. This month we had 5 Sundays, and I mistakenly thought we would be having one of our topic discussions this Sunday, but instead, our session is on Everton Grace. We left off on page 35, and we are finishing up with the chapter on purifying our hearts, and then beginning on the chapter Changing Our Values, where Darwin introduces the subject of sublimating our lower impulses in favor of higher values. Anger is transmuted into patience and tolerance. Greed and wanting are sublimated into the spirit of generosity. Lust and desires are transmuted into longing and purity. Jealousy into an appreciation of others. Bindings into inner freedom. In taking a reading of our interior, we are able to avert certain impulses and negative emotions and move toward aligning ourselves with our better angels, the divinely human qualities deep within us that flow directly from Baba. We surrender our limited life and move toward the unlimitedness of Baba's being.
Okay, thank you. I might just add something, just expanding on that. Back in 1970, this buddy and I were living near Darwin and Jean Shaw, and we came to Darwin one day because we were having difficulty at our job in doing the work and remembering Baba at the same time. You know, it was one or the other. It was difficult. And Darwin said, he said, well, maybe you need to create more inner space. And we had never heard of the term inner space. What is that? But we were kind of too shy to tell him we didn't know what he was talking about. But then he said he described the scene in 1956 in New York when Baba was with Darwin and Jean and their 3 kids. And Baba said, if you love me, you must give me everything. All your pleasures and pains, your joys and your sorrows, your weaknesses and your strengths. Give those to me and be free. And this will please me. So that's all that he said. So we just started giving Baba, you know, all of our emotions and thoughts and whatever there. I mean, I just kind of imagined. He didn't tell us how to do it, but I would kind of focus on the complexes and feelings and everything in myself, and spending some time at that, and then imagine it flowing to Baba in front of me. And basically, it's like emptying the heart. So we started doing that, and eventually we did create some space within us. And in that space, that inner space, down below were all of our, you know, our desires and negative emotions and wants. And then above us, we could sense the divine qualities, our better angels, you know, like empathy, kindness, and generosity, patience, forgiveness, all the loving qualities. And so we kind of got a feeling that when Darwin talks about rising to the level of the spirit, it's going up into that realm and responding to life from there rather than reacting to life at the lower level. So we got some sense of some space in there, and you know that's so a lot of this is about creating some space so we have some choice in there from always reacting and being able to respond. So I just I'm reflecting on that. So anyway, let's see. How about we'll start out. Um, Seema, do you know where we left off?
Yeah, I'll share.
Yeah. So, Shri, are you, do you have the book there, or he'll put it on the screen, if you don't mind reading?
Sure. Is it the God's Purity section?
Yeah.
During Meher Baba's last moments while in America in 1958.
Oh, wait, 1 second. How about backing up just a couple of paragraphs in the previous one? Because they're very, okay, right there. That's good. As we work inwardly, start with that, because that's a valuable thing that's very helpful, I think.
Okay. As we work inwardly, we notice that our consciousness settles more at the subjective level and our responses to the world flow from that level. Our values are more clearly defined. We see what sanskaric impulse is coming through and can make intelligent choices as to how to counteract it. Our real work, then, is not developing some intellectual practice leading to special knowledge, but learning how to keep the heart center open, which means rising above the level of sanskaric impulses and letting love flow freely.
Yeah, and then go on, yeah.
God's Purity. During Meher Baba's last moments while in America in 1958, he communicated to us, I am you all. I am in you all. But I only can enter your heart when you have driven out everything else. He added, I am God. I am in you all. But I feel shy. I do not enter your heart if I find there is the slightest impurity. He was not conveying the idea that we had to go from being bad to being good, but instead that our minds had to be cleansed of impurities, which means thoughts and desires. Purity of heart means God's purity. Once we have love and inner freedom, purity of heart follows as a byproduct. So we do not focus on purity per se. That could easily lead us to egoism.
So anyone to speak to that? I'm wondering if people get a sense of what Darwin means by rising to the level of the spirit.
This is Mary, and I just have a comment.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
go ahead.
if you could slow down the reading a little bit for those of us who are not the intellectual type, but more the emotion type, we need a little bit more time to hear the words. Thank you.
it,
I'm like
Sri, you'll know how it gets when you get a little bit older. You
No,
guys are much quicker.
it's personality types, not age. There's the thinkers and the feelers, and we
Yeah.
more emotion type need a little more time to
Yeah.
hear the word. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's interesting because there's an intellectual understanding of words, and then there's the experiential listening, which I find a lot slower. I have to kind of hear the words, take it to my experience, and then back and forth. So it's a much slower approach for me. Yeah.
Peter.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm not
Hi,
able to
Peter.
listen all that well. Hello there, whoever that sweet other soul was. One thing I didn't understand is at the end, it talks about purity possibly leading to egoism. And I would have thought that if we have purity, we would not have egoism. And I wonder whether maybe the provisional ego comes into play. Maybe we go from ego to provisional ego. Just a question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. In other words, you can get proud of being pure. You know what I mean? I mean, it can lead to egoism if if we're not careful, you know, to acquire some of these, attain some of these things. But Darwin used to say, high self-esteem without egoism. You know, so that's a very interesting combination. So I had asked too, do you folks have a feeling of what it means to rise to the level of the spirit above the sanskaric reaction to life? Does that
Jeff.
ring a bell? Good.
No, doesn't ring any bell to me.
Okay, but can someone respond to that? It's too bad we don't have Tony here. Uh,
We have Go Hair here.
yeah. Okay. Oh, you.
There she goes again, putting me on the spot.
I'm
Yeah.
putting you on the spot.
If it's not you, it's Jeff. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Purity of the heart. Well, let's see. So you have a reaction, a sanskaric reaction to something. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. Happens to me all the time. But then if you have Baba in your life, you take a step back and you become the observer. And from that standpoint, you get to see the picture more clearly, I think. And then you can decide exactly how to go about acting towards it. So then you have the choice of acting proactively, if you know what I'm saying, and making the right decision, the decision to rise above the sanskaric reaction, the knee-jerk reaction, and respond in a positive, favorable way, in a way that Baba would approve. I think that's my take on it.
Beautiful. And that what I mentioned about having that creating inner space, that's that ability to be able to step back and draw upon your loving side of yourself rather than the knee-jerk side. But you have to have some space in there, and by emptying out a lot of the impurities in our heart, it gives us a little more awareness with Baba in that internal space. Martha, does that?
Yeah, that's very helpful. That part about being a witness,
Yeah.
that's something I can relate to. I like that concept. I hadn't thought of that part of it. So thank you. That helped a lot. Thanks, Go Hair.
Jeff, I'd like to talk a little bit more about this. As Goher said so honestly, in her tremendous depth of sincerity and love for Baba, this happens to me all the time. Once Goher speaks this completely purely and innocently, the truth, that allows for me to say, you asked a very important question. How do we rise above the samskaric challenge into non-reactivity? And I've been struggling with this for a long time. You know, in our professional life, it's very easy. We know how to put on that mask. We know we do not react. But in our life outside professional work, you know, it's a lot harder to be real about not getting caught in reactivity. So I humbly ask you, if you are able to do that, how does that work for you? How did you get to that point? How can we individually get to a point where we're not caught in the reactivity, because it happens, as we all know, so quickly, and then the mind is off to the races. And how does one really do it? Or is it impossible? I didn't mean to ask the question that way, but it came out that way. Is this possible?
There you are, Goer.
No. In our life with Baba, nothing is impossible, but it does take work. Yes, it does. Therefore, it takes effort, and therein lies your effort to be more, you know, to come closer to him. And the way you do that is just every time that happens, you just train yourself to take a step back instead of reacting. And it'll take some time for it to occur, for it to become more natural with you. But just being aware of it is a big thing. So as long as you're aware of it, it will happen. So just trust in Baba and ask him for his help, and then just keep trying to be that, to have that reaction instead of reacting, to respond in a way when you step back. It'll happen, but it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes practice. So don't give up. Don't hope. Just trust in Baba.
Thank you.
Like Erich used to say, spiritual progress is very, 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 very gradual. Four varies. That's too much for an American. You know, it could be very, very gradual, but not four.
Very
Okay.
helpful, Jeff. When you say that, you remind us of the reality.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Goher. And thank you, everybody. It's just an incredible challenge for
It is.
everybody.
It is, but don't give up.
Yeah.
With you.
So I had one comment and then one question for the group. The comment was, I think like when it comes to reacting and, or rather like not reacting, one thing that I found very impactful in my life, because I can like have a bit of a temper, especially internally, even if I don't let it out at other people. Which I know you would never imagine just looking at my face. But one thing that really helped me was Eckhart Tolle talks about the idea of thought bubbles, and it's kind of like a physical, it's a physical way of like, or a physical representation of like any thoughts, good or bad that happen to you. So like you think of like anger, it's like a red bubble that pops up, or happiness, so like good or bad. And he has this like mental depiction of like literally snipping the connection between the thought bubble and your head. And you snip that by realizing who that thought is occurring to, or that emotion is occurring to. So if you attach yourself to that thought and you're saying, oh, Shri is getting mad at something, or something bad is happening to Shri, that's why people get upset, that's why people get angry, that's why people are happy. But then if you don't associate yourself with that, he's like, that's when you start watching the thinker, like that's his way of differentiating like the I and the self. And for me personally, that was really impactful, because you take a step back and you realize like, well, Shri at the end of the day is just like a physical form of something that's a lot greater, or like Jeff is just a physical form of a soul that's in there. So for me, that was really helpful.
Yeah.
But my question was, in the passage, Darwin was saying, I can only enter your heart when you've driven out everything else. I personally have found that I feel like Baba enters my life when Baba's always in all of our lives, but I feel like the times where he's helped me the most is when I'm at my lowest rather than my highest. And I feel like that's when he enters my heart, when I'm really sad or really anxious about something. And I know my heart is filled with all these impurities, because whatever is making me sad or depressed is something that in the grand scheme of things shouldn't be making me sad or depressed. So I was just curious, Jeff or anyone else, what do you think he really meant by that?
So we'll put it out on the floor there, and we won't ask Goer to have to jump in right away, but later on. Yeah, excellent question. Anybody can just respond to what Shri is saying there before we move on to the other anyone's other subjects.
Could you condense it into a focus, a question that you're asking?
Yeah, so in the passage, Darwin or Baba said, I don't enter your heart when I find that there's a slight impurity. I was just saying, I felt like the times where Baba has impacted me the most is when I'm at my lowest and I know my heart is just full of a lot of impurities.
I see.
Yeah.
I would like to just share something very quickly, because to contribute to what everyone else has said, which I appreciate, and that is something that I've noticed, that Baba was never judgmental. He was always supportive in whatever he instructed. So it's up for us to kind of untangle it. Well, what does that mean? And that's just what you're doing by asking this question. And for me, I don't have a simple answer for that, because as I've said before, I'm more of an emotional type person, not a thinker type. I have all three: head, heart, and creator. I have all three. As Baba said, he came with the triad nature of knowledge, power, bliss. So for me, what has been helping me a lot is that I separate my human self, who's never going to be perfect as long as I have a human self, until God realized. But my higher self is God realized. As Baba said, at our core, we're all realized. So what I've been having fun with, a little bit of fun, is having more of a dialogue with my human Marion and my expansive spiritual being. My expansive spiritual being is moving out. I'm moving into spirit, having the human experience. I'm right there with the whole planet transforming. And then human Marion will always put her hands on her hips, across my chest, and say, no, I'm not going there. I will not go with you into that void. I like where I am. It feels comfortable, even though it's painful and it's stale. I'm staying. And then I can, rather than judging her and putting her down, I can turn to her, now that I'm more in this other space of spirit having the human experience. I can ask her, is there anything else you could share about that? And listen to her. And then in listening to her, there will come up something, well, because it scares me, and she'll have something to tell me. And I can say, well, I can see what you're saying, and giving her some empathy, not being hard on her. And so I'm doing a lot of that, role playing, which has been very, very helpful, because I'm finding my higher spirit self is inspired as to how to take her by the hand and not try to pull her where spirit is going, but really hold the hand with empathy and lightness of being, and find ways to communicate. So I just want to end with that, because it's not advice for anybody else to do what I'm doing. I'm just sharing. Oh, it's finding what's working for me. So I would say powerful questions brings powerful answers. And you did ask a powerful question. So it's very positive. And thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm reminded of one of Mara's favorite quotes, where she says, where Baba said, seeds germinate in soft soil. I plant my seed of love, not in your strengths, but your weaknesses. That's when we're the light comes in through our vulnerabilities. You know, there's a line from Rumi where he says, without need, God gives nothing.
Yes.
It's when we're experiencing our kind of weaknesses, I think we're drawing very near to Baba, as you experience. When
Yes,
things are going fine, sometimes something has to kind of jolt you into an awareness of Baba at an intense level, you know. But anyone else want to respond to that, or shall we move on to other comments?
Peter?
I have my hand up, Marcia.
Masha.
Yeah, we got Peter is ahead of you there. Go ahead, Peter.
All right, thank you. I didn't think I was going to be contributing this much, because I'm really, really in a very painful, sad place. But sometimes I feel like I can't resist. Yeah, answer to the question to me is a very, very inconvenient truth. I remember reading in The Real Treasure, and I forgot who. I'm just trying to get to Shri. There was a story I read in The Real Treasure that asked the question, what was the more spiritual type of event? Something that created joy with us, like a wedding or a birthday party, or something that created pain? And I was not happy to find out that what had most spiritual significance, and I may post a story if I can find it, is the one that caused us to think of Baba more. And if you think about it, if I think about it, would I be focusing on Baba if I was a happy camper? No, I'd probably be like, bye, I'm happy now, ciao. But when I am sad, hurt, lonely, suicidal, whatever, he's the only tool I can really, spiritual solution every problem. To me, there's no choice in it. Well, there's a choice, either go down one road or the other. But again, to try to distill it down very simply, there is the significance of being in pain, because that is what will more than likely provoke us to remember Baba more than if we're in joy. So if we're in our pain, or as you say, impurities, to be very polite about it, I think that does have tremendous significant spiritual value. And God, I'm getting a little bit of a headache. I hope that was expressed well enough, because my brain is kind of cutting off right now, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Yeah, good. You know, there's a line from Baba that's also very significant where he says, but this is Baba, he who remembers God in his hour of happiness remembers God best. Now that's, but very often that's when we just kind of go with the happiness, and we don't remember Baba in the happiness sometimes. But he who remembers God in his hour of happiness remembers God best. And for myself, I make sure I remember him when I'm happy, because otherwise he may have to go the other route and make something untoward happen. So anyway,
Rich?
from Colorado.
Yes, all the way in the Western Rockies, you know, the big rocks and the little trees and the desert. But well, recently what I've been going through, and I think it's because I have a very focused mind, and I have lots of lessons to learn in karma. But I've been experiencing a form of suffering that's very difficult. It really is difficult. And what it's brought me to is, whenever I remember any sense of compassion or mercy from anyone in my life, including dogs and friends, suddenly I'm at a weeping stage. You know, it's that touch. And I think it's part of a longing for relief from being tied up in the upapag, you know, in the Ishwar for so many millions of years that we all have, you know. And I just want Baba to help me get released from some of the burden or whatever it is. And it's very difficult, because I think it's what you said about Erich. It's very, very dot.
4.
Yeah, 4 of them. And it's like, I don't want that. I want it pretty quickly. Okay. I don't want all this other stuff. But some of these secret happy longings, like I have a dream of having every desire fulfilled, and here's my parameters and da. And I know that's never going to happen, especially in this life. And so the frustration of giving up a lot of those attachments, ideas, or even feelings about those ideas is a job that Baba keeps chipping away at all the time. But my original thought was something Shri said, and but I've sort of forgotten that. But the funny thing is I can go out and about and talk to people, and I've gotten so much better in my life than I was earlier at trying to recognize who they are, you know, in the presence of the moment. But on my own, internally, in my own space, in my own house or whatever, this stuff, it's very perplexing. And I don't think, be honest about it, Baba has always helped me, but I don't think he gives me much relief from that. I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, because, you know, Baba, are you here? You know, I don't know. But out in the world, I'm much more able to appreciate others than I've ever been able to before. And this goes back to what the original topic was, is having that moment where I don't have to be the center of attention when I'm talking to someone else. I don't have to be, you know, There's someone else there, you know, and I'm starting to listen more to, of course, what ultimately is Meher Baba. Hey, thanks for the time.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, one nice thing as I've gotten older is that I can appreciate other people enjoying themselves, and I don't have to be in the mix. I can just sit off to the side and enjoy them enjoying themselves. That's when earlier I had to be in there somehow. So it's maybe you get a little lazy or whatever. Okay, let's go on to the next section. And Johannes, can you read from there? The night and
The
the damsel.
night and the damsel. It is wonderful to discover that we have a great reservoir of love within us that can pour forth once we learn how to open the heart center. Many of us around Meher Baba would be aware of the heart center opening and love beginning to flow. His love was like a siphon bringing forth our love for him. We could not help but love him. The result was that our perception was greatly intensified, and we would find ourselves at much deeper level of consciousness. We would be able to discern values at inner levels more clearly than ever before. We found ourselves supported by new strengths because new energies were released. And together with the energies and insight, we found we had more control over our thoughts and desires and feelings within. Our world became not something being imposed upon us, but something that we could control more and more. All this is a function of the heart. So it is very important to keep the heart open and soft. In fairy tales, the knight in shining armor defends, protects, and shields the fair damsel. This is an allegory about the mind and the heart. One's mind can be very helpful in defending the equanimity of one's being, of one's heart center, which is close to the spiritual realm and should be predominant. The night, the mind, helps maintain the flow of love through the heart center, while at the same time providing an essential control on the sanskaric impulses that may try to come through. What we are seeking is peace of mind, which is really peace of heart. This means more harmony, upliftment, more light within, deeper and deeper values. We must ask ourselves what we value the most. If we value peace of mind, peace of heart, we will make the effort to defend the heart, through which we are capable of seeing God. Eventually, we experience a high degree of integration of the heart and the mind. Then, as Meher Baba has said, the false self becomes the lover of the true self.
Beautiful. Incredible what Darwin has said there. And let me ask, do people have a sense of what is meant by the heart center, or the experience of that inner place within ourselves? Is that pretty understood through experience, pretty much experienced? A lot of time we might be up in our head, but then being at the heart level. We should ask Tony Paterniti, but I think he's anything to say to what what Johannes just read? I mean, in a way, I do feel Baba is leading us to that very place. I mean, through all of this that we're doing in this day in and day out life, we are being led to that, some of the beauty of our own interior, our better angels rather than our lower impulses. But
Marian.
Yes. I have a comment. Again, it's personal, what I apply to myself as I've come to know what my dominant defense is and my dominant higher self quality is. So in knowing the aspects of that and what knowing myself, there's that know thyself kind of philosophy, is that with bringing, Baba has done a lot to bring science and religion together, in God Speaks, and there's going to be more and more of that. And so that is what scientists, neuroscientists have found, that there's cells within the heart that are similar to brain cells. They are not brain cells, they're heart cells. They're similar to the brain cells. So this whole thing of what Baba says, balance the head and the heart with the heart leading the way, that is intuition and that is God. Now that's from the discourses. So I always have to ask the question, so what I've found out is that love is not an emotion, it's a power and a force that holds the whole universe together. And so when I mistake emotions with love, they aren't. And I may respect, I may be, caring for somebody, I may want to be loved, that somebody take care of me, all of those feelings, all those emotions. But that helped me a lot being grounded in what I call the conceptual, not intellectual. That's different. The conceptual is the map of the territory. And that's throughout God Speaks and the discourses, but other books too. Somebody, quoted Eckhart Tolle. So they're around. Baba has inspired other people. So I find the more ways that I can distinguish between an emotion and a feeling. Emotions, I'm being tossed back and forth between life or death. A feeling is a wave that goes through my whole energy system. And if I'm in hatred, it can move. If I observe it, notice it, report it into Baba, and get some tools. I might need some counseling tools, like to deal with my hatred. So it's having tools. I call it tools in the toolbox. If you want to build a mansion and you've only got a hammer and a nail, you're not going to get very far. Yep. But if you've got lots in the toolbox, like we have our prayers, we have meditation, but there's other things too, how to process the lower self, because the lower self is the gateway to a deeper level of the higher self. It's not bad. So when I'm in hatred and selfishness and all the things named in the prayer of repentance, it's like, oh yeah, here's where I'm hating, and here's where I'm being selfish, and here's where I'm wishing harm on others. And it's what others have brought up, that first step of transformation is observation, just as you all have been sharing. That's beautiful, because it was pointed out to me. And who is the observer? Spirit, of course. Now, there's no angels flapping, there's no heavenly music playing, but once I can take one step back and observe and describe what's happening, I am embodying my spirit while holding my human self with some compassion. So I'm saying, the more I have in my toolbox, the more I can pull out of it to help me get centered in wherever I am. So thank you.
Yeah. To be able to kind of have the witness and then your life before you, if you can get a little space there, it makes a lot of difference. But when the witness and your personality are one and the same, it's a lot more difficult than when there's you can stand back and see yourself. Okay.
Marcia.
I,
The power went out in Marcia's. Oh, the power's
oh,
back.
no. Anyway, well, I've been like in a really good place, and I'm getting ready to leave, and I woke up one day and I said, oh my God, I've got to pack up 2 places and be out by 11 o'clock at both places. So I sat there and I said, okay, what do I do, Baba? So I got out a pen and paper and put down step by step, and I listened to Baba, because that's who talks to me, is inside. And he doesn't just stay away. He's always there. It's just that maybe when you have too much stuff going on, that he just can't be available to you that time. But he definitely has everything planned out. And when you surrender to that you're not in control. I mean, you might think you are, but he runs the show and he knows the outcome and he knows what we need, and it comes at the right time. And like, I've been having kisses and kicks and kicks and kisses, but every day when I go to bed, I know I did the best I could, but if I step back now and look at, I'm running around the cabin like, where do I pack first, and I have one night to do a whole thing. I just, I rest and I do stuff, and I still it's so beautiful. Life is so beautiful. He's given us such a gift, but he beats us up like it's one step forward, one step back, 2 steps forward. I mean, he really is brutal, and he's having fun watching us struggle. I'm sure of it. But he's got good intentions. He wants us, like you said. He said there's going to be a happy ending, right? Because he wrote the book. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Hey,
Well, I'm having a hard time wanting to leave here now. I'm getting ready to go soon. So
yeah.
I'm worried, how do I hang on to how I feel now when I go back to my life, It's like I stepped out of my life. Yeah.
But yeah, all that Darwin is saying is the way of keeping this all alive. Hey, Mayor Prasad, how about reading, we got Ronnie first,
Yeah.
and then maybe Mayor Prasad can read the next potholes there in Seattle. Okay.
Yeah, the last couple of days, it came to me that I seem to have developed, right? Maybe it's been for a long time, but I was just noticing it, becoming aware of being a little more childlike in my attitudes toward things and the things around me, the world around me, the people around me, the responsibilities that I have, and that kind of thing. And I really appreciate that. And I think it's as a result of what Baba said that he is here to do. His role, as he said in the highest of the high, is to strip us of our wants and desires and attachments. And I think the more I try to please him in some way or avoid displeasing him, the result is that he starts stripping away something. Who knows what it is? He'll take his pick. It's his. That's his choice. But whatever it is, it seems to have a good result. And so I am appreciating that, and I'm appreciating people more. I feel the love flow. I mean, not all the time, but today in particular, the people that I was focusing in on right here, and I was on the Zoom for Jamie Newell's concert and all that, and just looking at people, listening to people, whether they're singing or just there. I felt an affection for each one, and it didn't matter if I knew them or not. Somehow, personally, it was just flowing. And I think when that's happening, it doesn't happen all the time. I think it comes and goes. But when it is happening, it's great to really let it make something out of it. Show your appreciation to Baba for a day of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, you know what Darwin says, I mean, the love is emanating from us all the time, but then it has to get channeled through the heart and the mind and the body, and it loses a lot of its, you know, its force and beauty, you know. But the love is just, it's like on an overcast day, you know, we say the sun isn't out. The sun is broadcasting all the time, but then it has to go through the heart. If the heart is pure, then things are flowing. If the heart's got all sorts of complexes and hang-ups, then it loses some of its, you know, beauty, and then it's got to go through the mind, and it gets kind of jerked around there, and you know what I mean. But it sounds like you're up on that level of what Darwin calls the spirit, where love is flowing out of you. That's our natural state. When the clouds lift, that's where we're going to be. We have that to look forward to. It gets better, I would say. Okay, so let's go on to the next. They have a lot of potholes in Seattle because it rains all the time.
All right. Sanskaric potholes. It is a delicate undertaking to gain control of one's thoughts and feelings without any coercion at all. Effort, yes, but not coercion. It becomes a matter of seeing through the sanskaric complexes, which are based on erroneous knowledge, beliefs, and limitations, and being resourceful enough to take evasive action. All this is in relation to one's own specific sanskaras. It is like going for a walk on a known route. We come to know the wet, slippery areas, the potholes, and where the route leads. The first few times, we might make a mistake and fall into a pothole, but we soon get enough sense to walk on the other side of the road or choose a different place to step. When we have learned from experience where our sanskaras lead, we come to know that we have to redirect them early. After a while, we can see the beginning of sanskaric pressures and start to counteract them at their earliest manifestation. It is like a railroad worker observing a train peacefully chugging along. Suddenly, he notices a rogue train barreling down the same track from the opposite direction. He quickly throws a switch in order to divert the rogue train to a side track. Then he smiles as the first train, now out of danger, whizzes by. The first train represents truth, and the rogue train represents ignorance due to our sanskaras. We can learn to take subliminal evasive action to switch our train of thoughts and feelings at the first sign of impending trouble. We have to learn how to maneuver the mind so that we have more control. Not willful repression, but a redirection of our energy so that we experience more inner freedom. Eventually, the thought patterns are no longer able to control us. Instead, they come under our control. This is not blind control because it is backed by understanding and subservience to truth itself. Gradually, we become aware that everything really is illusion, and we become a channel of love, a river of love, an ocean of love.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. One thing when I was young when I used to hang out with Darwin, and he just didn't make stupid mistakes like I was making. I'd kind of go down a what seemed like a good path, and it would wind up being just a sanskaric mess. And I was hitting all sorts of things, but he just had a kind of a measured consciousness that could just not do these stupid things that are binding. But that's, it gets better over time. Any comments to this? Shri, do you find yourself going down, taking kind of dumb steps, or are you pretty much because of Baba, you're heading off in kind of positive directions?
I would like to think the answer is both. Might as well make my stupid mistakes in my 20s as well. But overall, I think I would have been making several more stupid mistakes had I not found Baba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about, let's see, what about you, Josh?
Yeah, I feel like I make the same mistakes over and over again, which is, they're just learning experiences. But yeah, it's just, well, it's a big experiment. And often I can intellectually know something, but I have to know it internally to be like, oh, okay, that's a bad idea. I've got to touch the stove 5 times before I'm like, okay, I won't touch the stove this time.
Yeah,
But
excellent. Yeah. There's a lot to be said for trial and error.
yeah.
And Darwin used to say that a lot. It's trial and error until you go ahead.
Rich.
I've been thinking during this talk, Jeff, I was going to ask, because I was thinking about the center, but I know I've been reading a little bit about in Avatar, the Age Manifesting, but there's the old thought that when you go to the tomb in India, you actually receive yoga sanskars. And all the Mandi that everyone met, they were only made of yoga sanskars. And Bao said that Baba turns those during their lifetimes into Vijnani, awakened sanskaras. So they're already free by his work. But for us, that I think the yoga sanskaras, I think that's the way I understand it, work to set us free beyond even our own recognition, maybe, of who we are, because they're more the work of the avatar. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, anytime any thought of Baba, any way, shape, or form of connecting to Baba, you are picking up, I would say, divine impressions that dissolve a lot of the mess that's inside of us. But if you go to the tomb or you come to the center, you're walking through divine impressions like autumn leaves. So it's immensely helpful. But any kind of focus on Baba is the short path to dissolving all of the things that obstruct the flow of love in us. And the beautiful thing is, I mean, we're kind of like addicted to viewing things from a sense of time and space, but Baba comes here and then we say he went. No, he came here to tell us that he's always here. Even though he has to take his body elsewhere, he remains. His personality is eternal. It's there and available. Christians could connect with Jesus in a much more personal way and find out all about him the way the Christian saints did. They were relating to Jesus not as it came from the 4 Gospels, but the way they found him in the present moment. And it seems like, Baba has gone there and then we're kind of trying to live by what he left behind. No, he's like right here with us, and we have his phone number, and you can dial any time. Okay, let's go on to the next section. I forgot what it is. But there's been a request to have Shri sing a song at the very end. But I probably shouldn't have told you, so you might have to think about it. But there was a request, so you can pass if you want. Okay, changing our values. Let's see. Nasreen, how about you?
What should I do?
Read what's posted there. Is it posted on your screen?
Yes.
Changing our values.
I hope I can read it clearly so people can understand. If we take even one step, and we all know one step we could be taking right now, we begin to experience a little light and a little more of reality after we take 2 or 3 steps. And then more steps. We see more and more light. And we begin to realize. Sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. And we begin to realize that we have been in a dream all along. You want the rest of it?
Yeah, the next two paragraphs.
It takes a lot of deep inner working to weed out desires, give up our misconception, and overcome our false sense of limitation. To thrill these things out and boldly and daringly kick them out of our consciousness. However, it is not that we let go of all these impediments and get nothing in return. There is no permanent void created when we let go of all these impediments and get nothing in return. There is no permanent void created when we let go, rather a process of exchange take place or should take place. Meher Baba speaks throughout the discourses and elsewhere about letting go of the limitation of our ego life in favor of the masters and limitedness of the truth. Therefore, we find that it is not a feeling of loss that we experience, but a sense of gaining some measure of inner freedom and fulfillment. Meher Baba is willing, even eager, to share his unlimited life with us. When we were with him physically, this was one of the most glorious things that we experienced. Sharing in his infinite beauty and sweetness and indescribable freedom.
Beautiful. Yeah. Excellent. Anything to say to that? Darwin was always very encouraging. This is going to happen to us, and it's not some distant future. We're moving toward a a refining process. We're ripening on the vine, so to speak. We're not going to die on the vine, we're going to ripen on the vine. Oh, we got
Martha.
Marta, you're
So can I give an example and see if this is what you guys are talking about? So,
okay.
so say there's something about myself that I want to like pick out that I'm not fond of, and I want to well, I don't know if I want to purify it or elevate it or change it or something to something that I think would be more pleasing to Baba. So so say criticism. Okay, so I say to Baba, okay, I am criticizing people, and even if I don't say something, inside I'm going through this, and I don't like this. So I would really like to, give it to Baba and change it, but I don't really know how to change it, except that I won't have the desire to change it to something, but I don't know to what. Is that what this means about taking your sanskaras and changing the reaction that I have to criticize to, oh, I'm criticizing again, and then just take a breath and go, okay, I'm criticizing. Okay, well, I don't want to do this, so I'll give it to Baba. Now, is there something else that I need to do? Like, I mean, I know this sounds ridiculous to ask you guys, but
No.
I'm trying to get this, like, is this like, it seems like Darwin's saying there's actually an action I can do to change my resolve to something else that I would prefer, to be more loving or more accepting or more open, or just not open my mouth to say something if it's not going to be kind or, constructive. Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you have to discover a way that you can actually give that in a way that works, so that it really does change. I mean, and from Darwin, what I had, the way he kind of, what I gathered from him is if you can feel the criticalness, the judgmentalness, but really feel it, I mean, even taking an hour to feel the circumstances so that you're in the feeling of it deeply, and then imagine that flowing energetically to Baba before you. But Darwin used to say, you can't heal what you don't feel. The deeper the feeling, the deeper the healing.
Yeah, I didn't get that piece.
And it's, yeah, I mean, to spend some time with it so that there is a movement of this complex in you toward Baba. Okay. And then, of course, you get insights too, like, to be able to see a little more clearly. Well, here's a turning point that Erich described in his attitude toward people, where there was one guy that used to come, there was a darshan program, but there was one guy that used to come up to Baba, and it was kind of clearly that he was just, he was insincere. He put on this display of devotion and flowers and everything like that. But Erich knew, witnessing this guy over the years, that it just was fake. It wasn't really genuine. And so one time, but he never said anything about to Baba. But after this one darshan, Baba said, well, how did the darshan go? And Erich said, yeah, fine, it was good. That's kind of how he talked. But Baba, it was okay? Anything troubling you? And he finally got it out of Baba, out of Erich. Baba, you know that he's not really sincere in doing this. It bothers me. And Baba said, but you don't know how far he's come. to be just this bad. And Erich realized he's only seeing a part of the movie. Bob is seeing the whole movie. And, you know, but I'm just saying that the criticalness sometimes is we're just looking at a small portion of the movie. We don't know, you know, how they grew up and the abuse that they experienced or whatever that makes them irritating to us in the present. You know what I mean? So there's also that component of being able to kind of possibly know, how did this person get to that place that actually evokes our judgmentalness or criticalness, you know. But that was a turning point for Erich to be more understanding of others, because he had to admit that I'm not seeing the whole picture. I'm seeing one little period of this. But anyone else to respond to that, go ahead.
Jeff, can I just say something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Marta, when you feel that you have to be critical, and at that moment, think to yourself, whatever criticism you're going to offer to that person, is it going to be uplifting? Is it going to be positive in any way? And if that's the case, then that's fine. You're doing it out of love and you're doing it for the betterment of that person. Okay. But never hurt anybody's feelings. Always remember that. Baba always said, don't ever hurt anybody's feelings. So I hope that.
Thank you.
But Marta, I think you were talking about just having the thoughts of these things without kind of having to. But here's an interesting kind of expanding on what Goer said. There's a hurting person's feelings and hurting their ego. I had to make that distinction. In other words, suppose I'm Jewish, and I know my parents want me to marry a Jewish girl, a Jewish woman, but I fall in love with someone who's not Jewish. I'm gonna hurt my parents, but am I hurting their heart or am I hurting their pride? You know what I mean? Am I hurting their want, what they want? You see, so sometimes we wind up hurting people and it's just unavoidable. But what are we hurting their pride or are we hurting their heart? You know, that distinction was valuable to me, because sometimes I'm sorry. I'm sorry that what I did hurt you, but it was unavoidable. You know what I mean? But exactly, though, Baba said not to hurt the heart of others.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
This is Mary, and I have a comment because, first of all, Marta, I just want to just say thank you, because again, powerful questions bring powerful answers, and I don't think that's always acknowledged. So I thought you can really be grateful who you are and the knowledge and the wisdom that you have to even ask this question, because it evokes so much. And I know for myself, it's again sharing, tools that I use, because I've learned from studying core energetics and all the energy field that we're not solid beings, we're energy beings. And so all of your judgmentalness or somebody else starts in your mental body, up in thought. And then it's put through into your emotion, into your subtle body of energy. And then it gets clogged up. The energy body gets clogged up. And then it comes into you judging somebody. What you're really trying to do is get to the spiritual core of judgmentalness, which is discernment. And as Darwin said in that paragraph we read, takes a lot of work. That's his first sentence. Takes a lot of work. So the work is, of course, needs to be guided and grounded and using tools that are proven to work. And that is what I've learned as a rule of energy, the energy body. Emotions do not transform unless expressed. Now, you don't want to go dump all this on that person and be mean. You know that. You also don't want it to clog up your subtle energy body and keep you from your freedom. So guess what? it brings up a question. How do you? It may not be the same way that I need to. Mine can be getting out my hitting bat and beating up on a pillow, telling Baba first, I'm releasing what so-and-so triggered in me. So that person you're judging didn't cause you to feel that way you feel, but triggered that in you. And so then I'm trained in my emotional release work. I can hit on the pillow and throw the person off the Brooklyn Bridge and be so totally mean, because I've already told Baba my intention is to release what is already there. So I may be filled with your love, light, and light, Baba. So my intention, intention is everything. And so just by your bringing up this question is very, very powerful and very much significant that you're already unwinding what it is that you are concerned about, because there's an automatic unwinding when once you can ask the questions you're asking. But it's helpful to be grounded in the science of energy. So thank you.
I mean, being here at the center all these years, our greatest curse of Baba lovers, including myself, is judgmentalness and criticalness. I mean, it's like, because you know how life could be, you know how loving we could be, and then over and over again, you see that it's not happening out there, and then you're stuck, and there's nothing you have to kind of not act on it and do anything. So you're like in a state of frustration, but you're not alone in this. This is like, I hardly know of anybody that doesn't have to deal with seeing stuff, seeing their cherished values, their sense of how things should be, get trampled by the behavior of other people. It's just, there's, yeah.
Well, it does help when we know that Baba's really going to take care of everything.
Yeah.
And it's really not up to me one way or the other, that it's going to be taken care of.
Well, he will get your cooperation.
Oh.
And he'll get the job done. Well, I guess Shri, Shri, you had your hand up, right?
Accidentally, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Rich.
Oh, thank you. I want to make this quick. I talk a lot, but I found myself to be pretty sensitive to other people's sanskaras. For example, when I was younger, I would get angry. And then if I went into a rage or anything close to a rage, I couldn't understand why it was so terrible. And then over the years, I began to think that what I was doing is, as I did that, I picked up angry sanskars from other people around me, and that disturbed them. And that was a very difficult thing. And Baba, truly, I can't describe the path, but he has really taken that thing away from me, because it's a very difficult form of ignorance. It really is. It's very ego-centered, selfish, But this whole thing of interacting with others and maybe taking on some of their sanskaras, I think I'm pretty vulnerable to that. So, thank you.
Yeah. Good. No, wonderful.
Ron?
Yeah, I think somewhere in the discourses, I remember reading this more than once. Baba says that the aspirant suffers when they witness other people falling short of what they pretty much feel that they're just succumbing to a weakness of some sort that it wouldn't be appropriate for them. In other words, so it could be something that they might judge that is a downfall. But again, this story about how Baba says you don't really know the person's situation thoroughly, but it's almost impossible not to recognize that. I don't think there's a problem recognizing it. I think suffering in the sufferings of others, especially when the person is suffering from this weakness, then you really feel sorry and bad for the situation. But that's just something that we have to move through. And again, if we didn't have those kinds of experiences, we would never have the opportunity to exercise tolerance. What would we ever have to tolerate? That would never get exercised or look to, or patience. And also understanding, because what are the chances that you haven't been through the exact same thing? You know, that person's weakness is something that you probably have been through, or if not, you're about to go through. So
And
it all works out.
one thing that helps, has helped me, is when you imagine that it's actually Baba through that person that's irritating me. When I think that it's the other person doing this to me, it's harder for me to adjust to it than if I feel that Baba, they're like a puppet in Baba's hands and he's trying to irritate me through that person. You know, taking it out of personalizing it that person, but it's my own beloved doing this. You know, there was, I think I've said this before, there was a six-plane saint named Ramana Maharshi. And he was asked, you know, what should our relationship be with others? And he was a very holy man, and he goes into a very thoughtful state, and he says, there are no others. Uh-oh. It's just Baba doing this. I mean, that being able to shift to that makes it a lot easier to tolerate the behavior of other people, because it's your own beloved doing this. But I spent decades and decades thinking that was other people that did this stuff to me, and I never resolved it until it helps more if I think it's Baba through that person doing that. So these are just things that help with that problem that we all have to deal with, you know.
Yes, yes, and I'm going to comment on that because my mask of goodness always hid a lot of complaining. And so I'm not going to bring out the complaining, and I'm going to get disapproval if I do that. But I had to learn to deal with it through therapy, through psychodrama, whatever ways. So now, because I still have that trait, probably will have my whole life, I have scheduled, so my mind isn't going like that all day, 3 complaint sessions a day with Baba. And so I set it up, and I have his picture there, and I tell him, now's my complaint time. And then I just let it rip. And it brings me closer to Baba. That flaw brings me close to Baba.
Yeah, excellent.
And when I'm finished complaining, I'm always smiling. So it's like, you know, so that's one of the things that I do. I put it in my to-do list so that I put some boundaries around it. My 3 major complaint sessions.
Yeah. And I think Baba enjoys it thoroughly.
Oh, I swear, I use the Ancient One photograph. I swear it's smiling at me when I finish it. Yes, yeah.
I mean, many years ago, Mani used to say, from time to time, Baba's sister would say, you have to see things through Baba's eyes. And I hadn't even kind of considered that exactly, you know, to see things through Baba's eyes. How is Baba, you know, because a lot of things that are bothering us, Baba would probably laugh at to see us so wound up with something. But it is possible to see things through Baba's eyes, especially if in our eyes is compassion and empathy. But it softens the whole thing too. But I had never considered that as an option. I was always looking through my eyes. But so hey, let's. I think we're at a good point. We got Dinku from Ambedkar Road in Dadar.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
You know, what you said about being judgmental and critical, I have a lot of that. And, you know, in the spur of the moment, I get all worked up, or if somebody's bugging me. And then I sort of look back and I think, well, Baba is putting me in that situation. It's either to get me to acknowledge it and get over it, or he's doing it for his own entertainment to see how I react.
Yeah.
And I try to work on it, but every time it comes up, you know, it's sort of right in that moment, I react, but then I look back and I try to overcome it. So it's like that.
Yeah. I personally think that Baba, as long as there's someone back in me that can get irritated or he can get a rise out of, he's going to go after it until that person is no longer there. You know that, and you know, I think I've shared this before. I don't know if I here, but just imagine that there's a guy named Craig Ruff who worked at the trust for many years, maybe 40, 50 years by now. But early on, this is as I was told, he was working there with Mani and Erich and Balna too and Rano, and he made a presentation to the trustees way back early on, and I think he put his time into it and everything like that, and nobody responded. You know, they didn't say anything. There was no reaction or anything for his efforts. And he felt very humiliated. And afterwards, he said to Erich, he said, Erich, I felt like very humiliated by that. No one responded. No one thanked me or anything. Erich put as I picture it, put his hands on his shoulders and shook him and said, how can you be humiliated when you don't even exist? I mean, now that's postgraduate. But I mean, as long as someone can be hit, you know, even humiliated, Baba is winning and we're losing. The moment there's nothing back in there to hit, then we win and he loses. He loses, but he actually wins. But the Mandali, I just felt he went after them until there was nothing else in there that he could hit. All self-importance was gone. I did feel from the Mandali that, I mean, think of Mara, the beloved of the beloved, the purest soul in the universe, and that she was just not self-important. In fact, recently, I heard this, that Heather was walking one time with Mara, and Mara said to Heather, seriously, do you think I'll be born into a Baba family next time I come? I mean, Heather didn't know what to say, and Mara said, and Heather assured her, I don't think you have to worry, Mara. And then Mara said, I know that's what Goer told me also. I mean, can you imagine? She just was not, you know, prideful or had any kind of whatever. It didn't go to her head at all. And that's the way they were, because Baba knocked that out of them so that I once asked, and then we'll end with Shri singing. I once asked Goer, on my first trip, I said, did you ever worry that Baba might just send you back to the world again? Send you out of Mirazad and you know, back to the world, life in the world? And she said, all the time. So there was no guarantee like, hey, I got a fixed spot here. You know, that there's that ongoing humility that I'm here because of him, you know, and just, anyway. So, Shri, before you get under your blankets there, would you feel like singing? You can pass if you like.
Yeah, I don't mind. I just don't know any Baba songs.
They don't have to be Baba songs.
Okay. I sing something called Carnatic, which is like South Indian classical music, but it's all about like different gods, and in South Indian, half of them end up being Ram.
Yeah.
So this is a bhajan written by a poet that lived in the 15th century, who was just enchanted by Lord Ram. Kaya piya sukh se soya, kaya piya sukh se soya, kaya piya sukh se soya, nanak janam goya, kaya piya sukh se soya, nanak janam goya, जामुकनी शिले राम नाम नहीं, जामुकनी शिले राम नाम नहीं, जामुकनी शिले राम नाम नहीं, जामुकनी शिले राम, वहाँ तो कज नहीं किया, कज नहीं किया, कमल मुकरा जन को दिया, कमल मुकरा जन को दिया, जन को दिया।
You're breaking up a little bit, but thank you. Yeah, lovely. Wow. So let's have Mayor Prasad, have you got a quote there by any chance? And we'll have like a few moments of silence afterwards.
Yeah, I have a short quote I can read. I think this may be from Discourses. One of the requirements of acquiring control over thoughts is to become fully conscious of what they are. They have to be attended to before they are controlled. I'll read that again.
Yes, yeah.
One of the requirements of acquiring control over thoughts is to become fully conscious of what they are. They have to be attended to before they are controlled.
Jai Baba. Thank you all for coming out on this late night, some of you.
I would
And
like to say, Jeff, that Shri, I love that. I think your microphone couldn't pass on all the articulation of the sounds. You know, it's just not quite good enough to pass it all through. So it sounded a little like stuttering, but man, it was beautiful.
yeah, there's do you have on there original sound for musicians on your upper left corner of your screen?
I didn't know that.
Didn't know that was a thing.
Do you see it up there though?
Hmm.
It says original sound of musicians on or off.
Hmm.
Do you see that?
Mine is lower left screen by mute, the little arrows. So hers may be lower left or upper left or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see it?
Oh, I just see like switching my microphone. I don't know. I'm on a pretty old computer.
It was great.
So, Sabine and Johannes, now you can have a breakfast and coffee.
I think back to bed for a few hours.
Okay. It's what must be 5:30 there, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
What town do you live in, Sabine?
Bielefeld, up north.
North.
Yeah.
Is it quite spring?
And I should say also, you see Mahmoud there?
Yes.
Yes.
He just had his birthday. How old do you think he is?
Show
He
yourself more
He
clear.
just turned 92.
Oh, God.
Who is
And
that?
he's full of life and energy. I thought he was only a little older than me, but
Who's 92? Who is it, 92?
Mahmoud,
Happy birthday, Mahmoud.
right there with Nasreen.
Birthday.
So happy birthday. It was great.
Yeah, he looks
And
82.
they have brought their whole family has been brainwashed with Baba.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba.
All of their kids, grandkids, and everything. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, much love to you. Next week we will have a topic, and I'm thinking just vaguely the value of suffering in this life with Baba. You know, yes, it has its place. Oh, Anahita, she's from Bombay too. Great to see you. And Dinesh, what about Dinesh? We haven't seen him. Uh-oh, we may not. We'll see. Anyway, much love to all of you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Baba.
Nazreen.
Okay, Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Avatar Meher
Baba
ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you.